Let's start with something real. You've been the rock for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to let yourself crumble. You've been the one everyone looks to when things go wrong. You're the steady hand, the unwavering force, the one who always has it together. People call on you because they know you won't falter. They never ask if you're okay. They don't wonder if the weight is crushing you. They just assume you can take it all, like you're made of something that can't be hurt, can't be bent. But what happens when the strong one collapses? What happens when the facade begins to crack? When the invisible pressure you've carried for so long starts to break through the surface? This isn't just about being strong for others. This is about a deeper, unspoken burden. The world expects you to stay composed, to never show cracks in the armor. The world doesn't want to see your vulnerability because, for some reason, we've been taught that vulnerability equals weakness. Strength becomes synonymous with sacrifice, and somewhere along the way, you start thinking that your worth is tied to how much you can endure without breaking. How much you can take before you're no longer useful, no longer worthy of being the rock. The truth is, the cost of always being the strong one doesn't show up immediately. It's slow. It builds like a pressure in your chest, a weight you begin to ignore because it's easier to keep going than to acknowledge how much it hurts. Over time, it's as if the pain becomes part of your identity. You learn to bury your own needs beneath the needs of others because you've been conditioned to believe that the needs of others come first. You start living for everyone else, becoming so accustomed to putting their happiness, their success, their survival ahead of your own that you forget what it's like to prioritize yourself. There's a subtle danger in this. You tell yourself that as long as you're still standing, you're okay. You smile, offer advice, provide support, and no one questions your strength. But what happens when you stop smiling? What happens when your shoulders begin to ache under the weight of carrying it all? What happens when you need someone to lean on, but the world only knows you as the person who never needs help? You see, strength isn't about how much you can carry. Strength is about knowing when to ask for help, knowing when to put down the weight, and realizing that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is to let yourself be vulnerable. But that's not something we're often taught. In the private moments, when no one's watching, the strong one is often alone with their thoughts, weighed down by the realization that they are carrying a burden that wasn't meant for them to bear alone. Perhaps it's a sleepless night, when all the emotions you've been holding in for months or even years finally surface. Perhaps it's that quiet moment when your body physically trembles from the weight of the emotional exhaustion you've been running from. There's a moment in every strong person's life when the facade starts to crack. Maybe it's when a single word, a small comment, or a small situation triggers an overwhelming flood of emotion you never expected. Maybe it's that final straw that breaks your spirit, and for the first time, you feel the exhaustion of pretending to be fine. Or perhaps it's a quiet breakdown in private, a moment when you realize you've been running on empty for so long that you don't even recognize the person you've become. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Holocaust and wrote about finding meaning in suffering, once said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Frankl's insights are a reminder that the more we try to control the external world without recognizing our internal world, the more we risk losing ourselves. Frankl's work emphasizes that there is meaning in suffering, but there is also an invitation to acknowledge our vulnerability as part of the process of growth and healing. The cost of always being the strong one is, in essence, the cost of never allowing yourself to be weak, never letting go of the emotional burden that weighs you down. What does it feel like to always be the one who holds everything together? It's a balancing act, a tightrope walk between your own needs and the expectations of others. It's the constant struggle of saying, "I'm fine," when everything inside you is screaming for relief. You hold the weight of the world on your shoulders, and each day you push through, pretending that the pressure doesn't faze you. even as your body, mind, and spirit grow heavier with each passing moment. But this constant strain, this need to be unbreakable, comes with a heavy price. The longer you ignore your own needs, the deeper the emotional exhaustion sets in. It becomes harder to distinguish where your strength ends and your weakness begins. The lines blur, and before you know it, the strength you thought defined you is actually masking something deeper, something that you're too afraid to confront. There are moments when you can't ignore the toll any longer. Maybe it's a panic attack that suddenly hits you out of nowhere, your chest tight and your breath shallow, as if your body has finally had enough. Maybe it's a sudden burst of anger, not at anyone in particular, but at the unfairness of it all. Maybe it's that inexplicable sadness that creeps in, leaving you questioning why you've been so focused on keeping everyone else happy while you've neglected your own emotional well-being. When you're the strong one, you forget that emotions don't go away just because you suppress them. They stay buried, waiting for a chance to be released. You think you're in control, but the more you suppress, the less control you actually have. Eventually, the dam breaks, and when it does, it can feel like everything you've been holding in comes rushing to the surface all at once. The truth is, the strong one often suffers in silence. They suffer not because they are weak, but because they've been taught that strength means never showing weakness. They suffer because they've been conditioned to believe that they must always be the one to take care of others, that their own needs and emotions don't matter as much. And in doing so, they lose touch with the very thing that makes them human, the ability to be vulnerable, to be imperfect, and to be in need of help. It's easy to admire the strong one. They are the ones who take on the challenges, who are always there when you need them. But the true cost of that strength isn't visible. It's hidden behind closed doors, in the private moments when the mask slips and the facade falls away. The real cost of always being the strong one is the emotional toll it takes on your spirit, your mind, and your relationships. Strength isn't about never breaking. It's about knowing that you have the courage to ask for help when you need it. It's about acknowledging that vulnerability is not weakness, but the essence of our humanity. And ultimately, it's about understanding that true strength comes not from carrying everything on your own, but from knowing when to let go, when to rest, and when to lean on others. You see, strength, as we've been taught to view it, is fragile. It's a construct that has been built up over time, reinforced by societal expectations and personal pride. And somewhere along the way, we forget that strength doesn't come from being unbreakable. True strength comes from being able to bend without breaking, to carry the weight of life while knowing when to release it. But it's hard to let go, isn't it? You've spent so long pretending that you're fine, that you're the one who can handle anything. Admitting that you need help feels like a betrayal to your own identity. The idea of being vulnerable is terrifying, not because of the potential for weakness, but because it feels like you'd be exposing yourself to a world that may not understand. And yet, that's where true healing begins. When you allow yourself to be seen in your entirety, when you stop pretending that everything's okay. One of the most profound aspects of the human condition is the desire to be understood. We crave connection, yet so many of us struggle with allowing others to see us in our rawest, most unpolished state. When you are always the strong one, you run the risk of becoming emotionally isolated. People see you as someone who has it all together, someone who never asks for help. And so, they stop offering. They don't think you need it, even when you're silently screaming for a lifeline. Consider the words of Carl Jung, a psychologist whose work on the unconscious mind has shaped much of our understanding of the human psyche. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The true cost of always being the strong one is that you lose touch with who you truly are. You become so absorbed in playing the part of the resilient figure that you forget the part of you that is allowed to be fragile, to fall apart, and to seek solace. Jung believed that every person has a shadow, a part of themselves that they repress or deny, often because society deems it undesirable or unworthy of expression. The strong one's shadow is vulnerability, They push it away because they associate it with weakness, with failure, with an inability to handle the pressures of life. But this shadow, as Jung would say, is not something to be feared. It is something to be integrated, something to acknowledge. Without embracing the shadow, we can never become whole. What does that look like in real life? It might look like a man who spent his life taking care of others, always being the dependable one, only to find himself standing in front of the mirror one day, not knowing who he is without that role. Or perhaps it's the woman who has been the rock for her family, holding her parents together through difficult times, only to collapse in exhaustion when no one is watching. In both cases, these individuals have become so absorbed in their strength that they've forgotten the quiet power of vulnerability, the power of being able to say, "I can't do this alone." And here's the thing, when you never ask for help, when you're always the one holding everything together, you deny others the opportunity to show their strength as well. The people who care about you, who want to support you, are often kept at a distance. They watch you helplessly as you carry everything on your own, believing that you don't need anyone. But in truth, the strong one needs others more than they realize. The problem isn't asking for help. The problem is that asking for help has been framed as a weakness, a flaw in your character. The moment you ask, you release the grip that you've been holding so tightly to, and you give others the chance to offer their support. In that exchange, there is strength and there is healing. Imagine for a moment that you allow yourself to be vulnerable. You stop pretending. You let your guard down and you let others see you, not as a pillar of strength, but as a human being with needs, with fears, with moments of doubt. What would that feel like? It would feel like a heavy burden lifted off your shoulders. It would feel like the relief of knowing that you are not alone in your struggles, that there is no shame in needing someone else. But vulnerability doesn't just affect how others see you. It also transforms the way you see yourself. When you stop pretending to be invincible, you reclaim a part of yourself that you may have lost in the pursuit of perfection. You reconnect with the part of you that has been stifled, the part that is allowed to feel, to break, to rebuild, and to grow stronger in a way that doesn't rely on perpetual endurance. You become whole again. Psychologist Jordan Peterson, known for his exploration of the human condition, argues that one of the keys to mental health is to be honest with yourself and others, to admit your limitations, to confront your fears, and to stop hiding behind a mask of invulnerability. Peterson suggests that it's not that you should be weak or overly fragile, but that you should acknowledge your weaknesses and work with them, rather than pretending they don't exist. This honesty, this willingness to show your cracks, is what allows you to move forward with integrity and to build meaningful relationships that are based on authenticity, not illusion. The cost of always being the strong one is that you lose the opportunity to be truly human. Humans are not meant to carry the weight of the world without pause. We are not meant to be endlessly strong, to never falter. We are meant to embrace our vulnerability, to ask for help when we need it, and to allow others to be part of our healing process. There's a saying that goes, "No man is an island." This couldn't be truer when it comes to emotional health. We all need each other, whether we realize it or not. The people who appear the strongest often have the greatest need for connection, for support, for moments of weakness. When we deny ourselves that, we deprive ourselves of the full human experience, one that is filled with growth, struggle, connection, and ultimately healing. So what happens when you allow yourself to stop being the strong one? What happens when you allow yourself to fall apart, to ask for help, to embrace vulnerability? You reclaim a deeper sense of self. You begin to trust others, and you begin to trust yourself. You no longer define yourself by what you can endure, but by the full range of your experiences, the highs, the lows, the strength, and the vulnerability. In that space, you discover a new kind of strength, not the kind that is about unrelenting endurance, but the kind that comes from knowing when to let go, when to rest, and when to lean into others for support. That strength is sustainable. It doesn't come at the cost of your mental health, your relationships, or your happiness. It is a strength that comes from balance, from accepting your humanity in its entirety. And in the end, isn't that what true strength is all about?